Hi, so my problem is, how big is this fish? So our fisheries monitoring staff measure tens of thousands of fish each year. The length data that is collected is really important for our biologists in order to understand what's happening in our fishery stocks. This information is then incorporated with other data that is collected and used to assess the fisheries and used to implement management decisions which ensure fisheries are fished sustainably and ecologically. So you can see how getting as much information as we can through these monitoring programs is really important to make informed decisions to look after our fishery stocks. So I've just got a short video clip here just that explains the process of what our monitoring staff go through to obtain this information.
Many commercial fishers, seafood wholesalers and retailers help our scientists by providing access to commercially caught fish for collecting length information and providing fish skeletons known as fish frames for analysis of fish age.
When the monitoring fisheries come here, it's a huge benefit for them with the amount of local fishermen that will come with all different species, so they can get all their data and information to keep on going with all their research. It's more of a benefit for us as we supply a lot of restaurants, so the more that fish cut they monitor, the better off it is for us.
Okay, so what is our problem that we would like you to solve or help us solve? So you can see here that our fisheries monitoring staff go through quite a lengthy process to get that length information. So from getting the fish, putting it on the measuring board, identifying what the length of the fish is, verbalising it to a colleague who then either puts it in electronically or usually hard copy form. That data is then taken back to the office or to the lab, and then that data is manually entered into our computer systems. That information is then needing to be looked over by one of the fisheries staff to make sure that there's no incorrect information or inaccuracies before being put into our data systems. So we're looking at trying to decrease the amount of time that our fisheries monitoring staff have to go through and obtaining that information to having it inputted into our data system. So what we're looking at is an innovative solution that can capture that length information and then directly have it input into our systems. So how can this problem help our fisheries staff? So the less time that they are spending getting that information into the system, so they could be taking more samples or measuring more fish, which would increase our sample collection or our data sets, which would increase the accuracy of our information that we supply to our biologists or our management to make better informed decisions. So a couple of considerations for the solution that we're looking for. You can see in that video that the conditions where they were measuring fish was pretty good. So some places that fish are being measured at, it can be obviously wet, salty, slimy, sandy conditions. So we need a solution that can be used in those situations. Also, there's not always a direct connectivity to satellites or to internet, so we need a provision that can be used offline and then integrated into our systems afterwards. Also, there are times where the fish that are measured are in cold rooms, so it is quite noisy and it's hard to hear. So an example that was given to me was obviously when you're in a cold room, you're going to have your jackets on, your beanies on. Beanies usually covering ears, so your person who's entering the data has got to flip it up, and the person measuring has got to yell out the information for that information to be entered. And there are times where you're asking the person to repeat that information just because you don't hear it. So we'd like to limit that as well. Just another thing is the length of fish is usually measured by fork length. So that's from the snout of the fish to the fork, so the short bit in the tail, I guess, the middle bit. For fish that do have fork tails, for any species that don't have fork tails, then it's the total length that's collected. So yes, we're hoping that with this solution we'll be able to connect. We'll be able to collect more samples, and it will enable the ongoing sustainability of our fish stocks. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Hey, how you going? What kind of accuracies are you looking for?
So I think we go down to millimetres for our fish, yeah. So we, smallest fish, so our measuring boards go from obviously 0 all the way up to 1.2 metres. So there are times that fish might go a little bit further than that though, but usually in the lab rather than out in the field.
In terms of the data you need to collect when you're measuring, so you need the length, you need the fish type.
Mm-hmm.
Is there other data you need as well?
Yeah, so I think with this problem, we are just purely looking for something that can just measure the fish. Yeah.
So do you don't think you could outsource the measuring to, say, for example, a seafood processor or someone else? Does it have to be your staff that are doing the measuring?
Yeah, so at this stage it would still be our staff. I guess we try to do it in a way that it doesn't really interfere with the way that they're processing. So kind of it's in the middle stage of when they receive the fish and before it goes into the ice slurry. So we want to do it as quickly as possible, but also, so it's mainly they get a set amount of time to measure and then they just measure as much as they can in that time. Yeah.
I was just a quick question. Sorry,
Yep.
just double checking. Are your fishes always dead, or do you measure a live fish as well?
Yeah, dead.
Dead. Cool.
Yeah. So it's either a whole fish or just fish frames.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Are the fish ever on a conveyor or in a continuous process, and would measurement in that environment be of interest?
I might flick this over to Emily.
Yeah, not generally.
No. Okay.
Mike?
Have you ever considered measurement of the fish in bulk? So basically just laying them down, taking a photo for argument's sake, knowing the length of one of them, therefore measure all of them.
I'm not sure if we have the space at the processors or at locations where they get the fish to be able to put all the fish out and take a photo and just measure fish based on that.
Other questions? Anything online, team? No? No one's asking questions online? Okay. Righto.
Just a quick question. How much time are you looking to save in terms of the current processing time, that when you only had that short period of time when you're at a place, trying to get through more fish or reduce the time?
Probably increase more fish. So we're looking at getting more fish length data, whether it be so that it frees up the person who would have originally been doing the data entry could be out in the field taking more samples. Yeah.
Okay, no more questions. Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you.